The Devil's Soul, Book 1, Chapter 4, Section 1, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, 1983. Paul leaned back in the threadbare chair, a grin lazing his face. The room hung with a sweet earthiness. His friends, two neighborhood black eyes named Jesse and Israel, sprawled on the couch, their laughter thickly inhabiting the cramped living room. The hum of their conversation was punctuated by bursts of amusement that percussed off the walls. Upstairs, Eli lay in bed, gripping his copy of The Hobbit. He'd read it and had it read to him, but tonight the laughter downstairs kept pulling him out of Bilbo's adventures. He could feel something in the air, a heaviness. Quietly, he slipped out of bed and tiptoed to the top of the stairs. The laughter had faded, replaced by murmurs and clinks of glasses. Paul slouched, a grin broad across his face. His friends lounged, their smiles almost half paralyzed alike, their eyes half closed. Eli watched in the shadows. Paul's eyes found Eli first. "What are you doing up? I couldn't sleep." Eli gripped the banister. Paul chuckled. "Too many adventures in that head." He winked, movements almost arrogantly relaxed. One of the friends turned, showing a sleepy smile. "There's your boy, Paul." "Yep, that's him. Eli's smart, reads a lot of books." Paul patted the chair beside him, but Eli hesitated, apprehending the strange tension. Paul tousled his hair, the gesture unsteady. "Going back to bed. Tomorrow we'll start The Lord of the Rings." Eli nodded, turning away from the haze that hung there. As he climbed into bed, he could hear the murmur of voices downstairs, the laughter having vanished. Chapter 4, Section 2, Phoenix, Arizona, 1939. Greta settled into her cot. Leland had moved it onto his and his wife's sleeping porch in their modest bungalow in the palm tree street in the north, but not North Phoenix. She tossed and turned. There was a little breeze, and the broad darkness out there was quiet, as quiet as her coastal valley homescape. Leland insisted she take the porch where he and his wife had been sleeping all summer, large fans deployed strategically, and their effect maximized by cold baths right before crawling into bed. Greta had tried to refuse, and Leland had demurred, but he had taken the fans. Her eyes opened and stayed open. Beads of sweat pumped tinily from pores. She had British skin, the kind that took to the sun only a little better than other Northern Europeans. She had small-talked often about preferring heat to the cold, but she had never felt real extremes either. Her valley, a place cooled by the ocean nearby, and the winters in that part of California were relatively mild compared to what her multitudinous, sprawled genealogy ancestors had endured. I know not what Greta thought would have disturbed her rest other than the heat. Perhaps she was homesick, apprehensive about the coming move to a shared room in a home for out-of-town students. Leland was arranging to move multiple students who were all reliant on benefactors for shelter currently into two different homes. The night probably held no threat, less for her soul, she feared. Or did the agents of temptation not come in the flesh only? Disembodied entities? The desert, where I supposedly offered her Lord power and wealth, but I didn't offer him anything. I showed him a view of things. Not power or wealth, but cheap and transient. But the beauty of this supposedly damned world, which could be especially captured and properly exalted from up on high, you would think the Lord would have already seen such sights, but he apparently hadn't. Greta, I hoped, was kept awake by the night's mystery, its panoply of curious creatures creeping. I hope she wished to name them all, marveling at their sundry apparatus for thriving, their calls and colors and concealment strategies and ways of sustaining themselves. Chapter 4, Section 3, Lancaster, PA, 1983. The 20th century in Lancaster saw many of its colossal classic buildings disappear or otherwise collapse, at least partially under the weight of inattention, eyes chasing other spectacles. These views now shrunk into a frame full of pocket watches and marshmallow Easter peep treats, these being notable products of local industry. Centuries before, the same industry had produced Conestoga wagons and long guns, this town home to forefathers and abolitionists. Schools now named after some of the local ones, other schools lionizing national icons. Thaddeus Stevens and Martin Luther King. Eli would later have friends named after both. Thaddeus, shortened to Taddy. Martin, the older brother of his best friend Eddie. Taddy was a thief, and Martin, not able to keep his purpley thing in his pants, just like his namesake, blackmailed over peccadillos by an FBI otherwise impotent in the face of his movement. Martin would have him touch this thing of his when Eli was 6 and Martin 9. Martin also touching him too, just one incident of pleasure associated with the male body, enough to cause a split in his sexual disposition. He would later learn in therapy a subcurrent of horror and shame and desire, adulterating all the other rhythms, joys, and sufferings of this terrifyingly brief existence.